So welcome to the first meeting of this season, and thank you all for getting here on time. I'm impressed by the turnout. Anybody on Zoom, if you have any problems with sound or anything, please, as usual, put something in the chat, and Elaine will do her best to help, who's hosting tonight, or I'm sure we'll be able to sort things out if we can. Right, first I'd like to start off by welcoming some new members. We have had 6 new ones recently, plus 1 returning. So I'd like to say welcome to Chris Izzard, or Izzard, I'm not sure, Martin Lloyd, Katie Ford, Mr. D.R. Broadbridge, sorry, Rebecca Kirking, Laurie Goodall, and welcome back to Ian Payne. Are any of you here tonight? Hello, I hope you have a long... So who are you, by the way, could I ask? Nice. Did I say it right? Izzard. Okay, thank you. That's more than I expected, to be honest. Great. Thank you. I hope you have a long and happy association with the club. You're very welcome. If you want to come up and chat with any of us and get to know people, please do. Right, now, as normal, I'm going to go through some of the forthcoming meetings, not only our own, but of other organisations, the other local clubs as well. Our next indoor meeting, which if you're watching the slides you already know about, is in 2 weeks' time on the 1st of November, Vancouver Island and the Great Bear Rainforest by Lee Morgan. More than just birds, there'll be there'll be mammals as well, but there's going to be quite a wide range of wildlife. Our next 2 outdoor meetings are both before that next indoor one. One's on Saturday, the 21st of October, which is Peter Driver's introduction to Berkshire birding, this time at Padworth Lane, GP. And then the next one is on Monday, the 30th of October, which is joined with NDOC, which is a car trip to Farlington Marshes and Hayling Island that Bob Lyle is organising. If you want to do either of those, please do contact the leader as soon as possible, especially for Saturday. We normally ask for 3 days' notice, but we need to know in advance just in case of having to cancel through bad weather or whatever. And a reminder of one of ours that's a little later in the year, on the 3rd of December, we've got a minibus trip to Pennington. Please contact Rob Godden if you want a seat. There are limited places as it's a minibus, but there are places available, so please do book in ahead. So the other organisations that we share info with, they publicise ours, we publicise theirs. NDOC has got their next indoor meeting tomorrow, Thursday the 19th, which is trip notes about a trip to Outer Hebrides by Debbie Reynolds, who you'll know as our president, and Leslie Staves, and that's at Mary's Church at Greenham. And their next outdoor is also next Saturday on the 21st. So they're going to Pennington and Normandy Marshes. If you want any information about any of these, please come and see me at the break. Either I will have the information you need with me, or I'll point you in the right direction.
You ask Mary Taylor to stop sharing her screen, please.
You can do that. I can't.
I've done it on chat, but
I can't. Oh, I see. Verbally.
Verbally.
Mary Taylor, did you say?
Mary Taylor.
Sorry, yes. Mary Taylor, could I ask you to stop sharing your screen, please? Somebody on Zoom is sharing their screen. Oh, I see. I see. That's why I've got a Zoom screen in front of me and not a picture. If you can't share, stop it. Would you like Elaine to stop it instead? I think you better stop the share, Elaine. Go to share screen. That looks better. Sorry to all of you on Zoom. I hadn't realised that was happening. Right, Reading local group RSPB. Their next indoor meeting is on Tuesday, the 14th of November. Birds of Ecuador and Colombia from Andy Tuck of Nature Trek, and that's at Pangbourne Village Hall. And their next outdoor is a little later, Sunday, the 19th of November, when they're going to Slimbridge on a minibus trip. And the last group to mention is Wokingham and Bracknell RSPB. Their indoor meeting is on Thursday, the 9th of November, when Dan Keel will be talking about the mute swan, portrait of a majestic bird at Finchampstead. And their next outdoor is before that, October 25th on a Wednesday, when they're going to Otmore, RSPB Otmore. But as I said, if you want to know any more details, I'll either have it with me or I can point you in the right direction. So please do see me at the break. Right. One more notice, unless or do any of the officers want to say anything? Anything you want to say? No. Recent sightings, what have people been seeing? My garden's still got its normal starlings and house sparrows. I haven't got anything else new yet, but I know that having looked at both bars, there's more out there than I could see in my garden, definitely.
Well, do you remember I used to report that I had one male house sparrow in my garden? So there was a flock of them now. I'm really delighted. For the first time in decades,
Excellent.
I've got a flock of sparrows chirping away all the time. It's lovely.
Good. That's Sue Charnley, for those of you on Zoom, who's now got a flock of sparrows, having gone from one to many. That's how I did it. That's what happened with me as well. Anybody in the room got any recent sightings or on Zoom? Sorry, Elaine? Excellent. Elaine's had her first chaffinch in the garden. Brilliant. Marsh Harrier at Hose Hill last week. I know there's quite a what? Raven. Whereabouts? Shinfield. All right. Raven at Shinfield. Yeah, I've been lucky enough to hear one from my house in Caversham not that long, a few weeks ago. I know there's a lot of great whites about, great white egrets. There seems to be a couple of things today at Moor Green and Lower Farm. And I can... Excellent. So if anybody wants a good time, obviously, for great egrets coming about. I know the red wings are starting to come through. And also, I think the first field fairs were reported yesterday, or day before yesterday, by Andy. Any other sightings? Anybody on Zoom wants to share a sighting? Nobody's putting their hand up. Okay, anything else? No. Right, then I'm going to shortly I should be introducing our speakers, but before we do that, they just want a few minutes to make sure their setup's okay. So once they've done that and we're ready to go, I'll do the introductions.
Do I need to link that?
If you just pull up what you want, you'll need that when you share screen. If you just go down to what you want to do.
Yeah.
No, you might want to shut that one. With yours still open underneath it.
I'm not sure. Right then. No. Okay, that's fine. I think we're all right.
And do you want me to share when you need to do that?
No.
I'll anyway, because I'm going to introduce you.
Okay.
You're better off sharing it first. Oh, no, no, it should be all right to put it on slideshow first.
Yeah.
check it first.
Yeah. Okay, so it's
Oh,
yeah, no, that's not. It's show you. It's this sequence here. Do you want that there? Because that's lixidated membrane, lixidated membrane. And then Crampton's deep there. Where should they?
Has everybody seen the Peregrine?
happens?
As we go to take a pellet.
We better make sure they're all there when we finish it.
You haven't. Has everybody seen it?
No.
Have you seen it?
I'll look at it.
Yeah. When I first saw that, though, I thought it was Scotch chicken salad. I was looking from back here and I was thinking they brought something to eat.
I must admit, I looked at them first with a quick glance and thought falafel.
You could try it.
No, thanks.
I think this is to do with the Zoom.
Occasionally, but I'm in the garden.
So that.
Not recently, no, I think I'll have you earlier. You're down there. I was like, it's on probably don't need my seed.
Oh,
I can never get into technology. The only creature in the garden that eats an idea when I put it out is the deer.
where does it go?
The idea is swimming up
There.
the feeder and just much as it's like doing an idea. And I don't put it out anymore. Much as I love the deer. It's expensive. Right, you want to just... Can I shout over the music, or do you like me to? Actually, I could shout. Thank you. Right, let's just like to introduce the speakers. You see, we're all set up now. We are lucky tonight to have not one but two speakers to start the season off. Let me introduce you first to Steve, retired accountant, but more importantly, he's always had a passion for raptors, particularly peregrines. And he's a trustee of Gloucestershire Raptor Monitoring Group and Raptor Aid. And he's, I'm quite envious actually, he's studied Symonds Yat Peregrines for about 40 years. Last time I went, I couldn't find one, so there you go. Right, the other person here is Richard Sale, who was a physicist, but now studies the 4 UK breeding falcons and their flying dynamics. And he's written many award-winning books. I was going to write them down, but I think there's quite a few in the list. But he has won the US Wildlife Society Book of the Year 3 times. Is that a record? Wow, congratulations. Together, they have written Peregrine Falcon, as you can tell from the ones they brought with them. And that's obviously the bird they're going to tell you about this evening. I'm looking forward to it hugely. So I'll pass you over and turn the lights off. The next
Lovely, thank you very much. I've got a mic here. Is that all right? Can you hear me okay? All right. I'm Steve Watson, as you know. What we're going to do is we're going to do 45 minutes. I'll do the first few minutes. Then I'll introduce you to Richard Sale. Richard will do some science, and then we're going to have a break after about 45 minutes, and then I'll do the last half. We've got some wonderful footage, I think you're going to enjoy, some fantastic video, some 4K HD images, and I hope you're going to learn a lot about peregrines today. This book was published in November 22nd, 2022, and it was shortlisted for the TWS, the Book of the Year in America, 2023. Not due to my efforts, due to this man, because he's a genius. But then we all know that, don't we? Embarrassed as well. Forgive me, but for the first few minutes, probably, I'm just going to do a little bit of marketing for the book. This is in the book. Most of the images and all of... Can I what? You want to start again? Completely from the beginning.
Let me just...
Oh, I see. We're just going to let you, the Zoom watchers, share the screen now. So you're pleased to know you're going to see the screen. With a bit of luck.
With a bit of luck, I'm struggling to get your... No,
it's probably not going to work with the PowerPoint.
I'll have to escape that.
Yeah.
We can, that's okay, that'll come.
Yeah, that's fine.
Get it.
Probably
Touch screen.
Yeah.
Oh, no, go down. All right, let's show you. Come on. Why won't it close?
I don't know, it usually does. I think it's something to do with the Zoom. Oh, okay.
It probably isn't.
Sometimes Zoom distorts your usual programs and does weird things, and so it'll go a bit weird.
Yes, that's intentional. That was hopefully I'm about to restore that. Hey, hit your finger. I'm not superstitious, but a few crossed fingers at the moment might be.
Yeah.
One more button, I hope.
Ooh.
Is that what you're expecting? Have I moved on your slides?
You moved on, that's fine.
I'll leave it.
Don't worry,
I'll remove you to go back.
See, now you're saying, well, yeah, that's fine, that's fine. We'll go back, 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 go back. You're going to see this twice. Sorry. Go back, go back, go back. What do you think? Okay, so as we were saying, most of the images you're going to see tonight are from the book. Certainly all the science is from the book. We have some science that Richard's doing currently, which is beyond the book since November 22, which we're going to share with you today. But first of all, what I want to do is just do a little bit of the marketing for the book, because we're trying to sell a few books tonight. So if any of you want some nice Christmas presents for those raptor lovers that you know and your friends and family, then we'll be very happy to do them cheap, discounted, and double time. So if you'd like to do that, by the way, I do have a card machine on me as well. So, you know, for those who don't carry cash around, you know, you're not going to get away that easily. Okay, so this is the front and then front and back cover. This is just an idea of the sort of images that we've got in the book. These are both coastal peregrines from Peter Christian from the Isle of Man. We've got 528 pages, 250 colour photos, 135 figures, and it brings science right up to date on the peregrine, as at November 22. This is just a couple of images of a couple of pages. We do UK population really bouncing off. If any of you know your peregrines and your literature in peregrines, you'll know that Derek Ratcliffe wrote the Bible back in 1980, and the second edition was 1993. We use a lot of his population data. We've brought it up to speed up to 2014. We've homogenized it so it's in map form, which wasn't the case before. Richard has done a lot of science in astrophysics. He's done a lot of science. He's the science man in this project, does all the science. And there's a little bit of flow, spatial flow, airflow over peregrines done by someone called Gary, which we can cover in the book. These are the books that are on sale tonight, and if you, you see, tonight, £45 sign. Okay, it seems like a lot of sign, 128 pages, it's first class, but I'm told, I can't say it's first. And the other book, the Common Kestrel, which won the award in America in 2021, is going for £35, and Richard no doubt will sign that for you if you wish. Going on from there, we've also got the Eurasian Hobby and the Merlin, and again, they're $39.99, £35 tonight. So that's pretty well the advertisements done with this tonight. This is just simply saying that what I've told you already, we've got a card machine. Okay, so now on to the serious stuff. We set up 3 sites to do comparative analysis of the breeding season. One was a quarry, another one was Evesham Bell Tower, which is semi-rural, and another was in Charing Cross Hospital, which is in the middle of London. And we just wanted to see how those compared as case studies. In one of the case studies, we had an incredible happening, which was caught on camera and video, which I'm now going to show you, and I think it's absolutely astonishing. Everyone we've done this for has never seen it. So here we are. Have a look at this. With a bit of luck. Okay, so this is a 3-year-old tearsel in a nest box that Richard and I put up on Evesham Bell Tower. This tearsel is ringed, and we know it came from Tewkesbury Abbey, and I was present when it was ringed as a juvenile, at about 20 days old. It's struggling because it's a tearsel, and it can't cover. The tearsels are much smaller than the falcon, about a third less weight, so they struggle to cover the eggs. It's really trying. It's first come with bread, doesn't really know what it's doing, trying to get the eggs underneath him, and struggling. Oh, hang on, I need to get a little bit further over that. Wait a minute. Just a little bit. No. Oh, no. Oh, you can't. No. Oh, hang on. Oh, what? Oh, hang on. Let the eggs on. Right, now, this is. Hang on, I hope she's not watching. Is she watching? Hang on, just a little bit there, because as you'll find out later, peregrines have got clean purvea, and they're feeling better out of the side of the eye rather than forward facing. Yeah, he's looking left eye. He looks to see the missus is there. She's not. He's relaxed. Great. Thank you very much. I'll carry on as normal. Not embarrassing. Okay, so now I'm going to hand you over to Richard, who, as I said, did all the time, and he's going to go for the rest of the period up to the coffee break. Thank you. Richard.
Thank you. I just noticed image of the bird turning over. He did that because it was my birthday.
Ah,
I hadn't noticed that before. Okay, so we're going to start with some basics of where peregrines come from. So these are some fossil eggs found in southern China, as it says. They were found in 2022, and they are of a raptoroid dinosaur. An oviraptoroid, it's a theropod from the late Cretaceous, as it says there. And this nest of eggs was actually drowned by, I think it was heavy rain or a river which overflowed. And so inside, the chicks had actually reached this stage. And so that's one of the chicks which was excavated from the eggs that remained in the site, and that's a drawing of the bird that was inside. And we also got some a reconstruction of the embryo there, and that's what that theropod looked like. And so that's 60 million years old, and clearly that's the forerunner of birds, and it is very, very similar indeed to a pigeon of more or less the same age. I know it's got a long tail, but pretty much everything else is pretty much what we see right now. And one last, I just found a Japanese guy working in China at the time with an American as well. He drew this of what the female probably looked like when she laid the eggs in the first place. So we then took 60 million years, more or less, to get to that, which is a peregrine, showing the basics of it, you know, the foot pads and so on. Peregrines actually evolved about 3 to 4 million years ago, at the time of the seafloor grasslands, which evolved in Africa. So all of the falcos have actually derived from Africa. The older birds, which are on the falconiforms, which are the caracaras and the forest falcons, they actually come from South America. But the basics of the falcos probably came from Africa. And Tom Cade, who you probably know, wrote a good book on peregrines many years ago. He actually noted that human beings were actually evolving at more or less the same time as the falcons were evolving on the seafloor grasslands in Africa. And so he said he wondered whether or not those first human beings could see the original peregrines or the original falconiforms scooting about the sky. And he wondered whether that's what actually brought humans and falcons together. And it's probably the case, if that was the case, why in Egypt they worshipped Horus, which is a falcon form, or gossault form, one or the other. And that's a watercolor which was done by Howard Carter, the guy that found Tutankhamun's tomb. It's one in the University of Oxford. And the Egyptians not only had Horus as one of their falcon gods, but they also created mummies. What we know is that they had about 10 million cats which were mummified, and they had about 8 million birds which were also mummified during the course of the religious ceremonies. This is one of those mummies. This is a saker. What we know from investigating some of these mummies, that a lot of them didn't have anything inside in the way of bones or anything. They were mostly reeds. But whoever bought this one got value for money, because that saker finished up with 3 legs, as well as everything else. And the small ball that you can see in its bill is because whoever was doing this job to manufacture 10 million mummified cats and 8 million mummified birds had to put up with the stench of dead bodies rotting away in front of them. And so it's got a little ball in its beak, which was presumably to stop the fluid from coming out. Now, about the same time, all over the world, people were starting to look at falcons and to have them as part of their religion and so on. These are from a shaman in the Koryak people in Kamchatka, where I was there at that time studying stellar sea. It was actually, but nonetheless, this is very interesting. This was the shaman of the Koryak tribe who actually let me have this. It's made from reindeer hide because they were reindeer. They had big reindeer herds, which they ate clearly and sold. And it's got the beak. The bill is a brown bear talon. And okay, so we were also looking at that. Not only were people actually revering falcons at that time, but falconry also started it around about the same time. So we're talking somewhere in the middle, probably about 3,000 years ago. This is a Hittite from a Hittite tomb in Anatolia in eastern Turkey. And what we can see here, I don't know how to do the pointer, I'll show it at the top. What you've got is a goddess who's actually got a falcon, which has actually got leg constraints on it of some form. And so falconry had obviously already started 3,000 years ago, probably on the Mongolian plateau, but it then spread into the Hittites in Turkey. And eventually, of course, falconry actually became a sport in this country as well. And this is from the Anglo-Saxon period, so they're about 700 years BC. This is a pert, which is showing falcons in the front, flaming birds, and they are part of what was found at Sutton Hole, which also includes small bells, which were being hung on the falcon's legs, and various other bits and pieces. But this purse itself is remarkable because it's actually made from Milforia glasswork and precious stones. And it's one of the earliest that we have of falconry in this country. And then we get the peregrine. And the peregrine itself is named from the original type peregrine, which was Tunstall's peregrine, which was found in this country. He named it Falco peregrinus. And so this is the one from Tring, which was in the Natural History Museum in London for a long period of time. That's why it's got one glass eye, because that was the glass eye which looked out at the people that were looking at it, and why that side, the feathers have somewhat been damaged by sunlight over several hundred years. This one was really interesting because it's now at Tring, and I'm working at Tring at the moment. And so I managed to persuade them to let Steve come on, because what Steve wanted to do was to see Tunstall peregrine. Because having been watching peregrines for 40 years, what he really wanted to see was the original peregrine, the actual one. So he came in and he asked, was he allowed to handle it? Yes, we could let him handle it. So he picked it up and the leg fell off. Really amused me, and it amused a lady from Tring Museum. Didn't amuse Steve at all. So anyway, that's why is it not moving, Steve? All right, it is moving. I'm seeing this for the first time tonight as well, by the way, or at least partially. We only put it together over the weekend, in fact, a couple of days ago. So that's the original Falco peregrinus. And now the book we produced actually deals with all of the 17 subspecies which are currently recognized throughout the world. So what we have is a bird which actually goes all the way north to the Arctic Circle and slightly beyond, particularly in Canada and also in northern Russia. Comes all the way down Tierra del Fuego towards where the Antarctic is, and is right the way across South America on the left-hand side. It's not in the Amazon rainforest. It's not a forest bird, peregrine, and right away across the Middle East, Africa, and right away across to Asia and Japan. And just across that range, you get different species, subspecies, and so different colorations. This one is a Pelei from the northwest coast of America, and they are claimed to be the darkest, which overall is probably true. They are also the largest, with females averaging up around 1,200 grams, which is almost the size of a Gyrfalcon male. And in Africa, we got the minor, which is the smallest, where the male of the minor in Africa is down to around 300, 350 grams. And you get these plumage variations as well with the subspecies. In the Arctic, the birds are very white, particularly in Alaska, but also in northern Russia. They are very white on the breast, and sometimes have white heads as well. In Asia, they have very different colorations. They can be darker. This is Ernesti from Singapore and the Philippines. And they are dark, they're very dark on the back, and they have this beautiful red breast. In South America, they're really interesting because they actually go the whole range of color, from almost as dark as a Pelei to almost as white as a Gyrfalcon, which is very interesting. And for my money, the most beautiful of all is the Melonicus, which is one of the Asian ones from India and Pakistan. Steve disagrees with me about this. He thinks that the Radama from Madagascar is pretty nice, but he really thinks that the best one is Peregrinator, which is from Gujarat, part of India. This bird is particularly interesting because the Peregrinator has this plumage at its western edge by Gujarat, Pakistan, but at the other end of its range and to the east, which is in Bangladesh and Thailand, it's almost identical to the British bird. It's very, very interesting from that point of view. But that is one rather lovely bird. It's a male, I think, isn't it? You're about, yeah, okay. So what the book does, it looks at those individual birds, where they are, what their ranges are, what their weights, and etc. are, and also what their prey species are. Just a few photographs of the prey. They essentially, what the peregrine does, it eats whatever it can get its claws on. It's incredibly eclectic in terms of its prey species. This is Fiji, and Fiji has dry grassland, rainforest, and sea cliff. And you can see as it changes from one to the other, the birds which are nesting in each of those three little micro areas, they change their diet. So in the rainforest, they're eating almost exclusively fruit bats. They eat fruit bats on the dry grassland. By the time they get to the sea cliff, they're taking seabird, and they're also taking pigeon. And not only do they change their diet depending upon what the ecology, the local ecology is, but they change it year by year. And this is Macropus in Southeast Australia. And you can see as the years go by, although the bulk of the prey is parrots, they actually interchange depending upon what the local population is providing them for any individual year. And one of the remarkable things about peregrines is that just how much they will eat. I mean, one of the discoveries that we had in Germany is where they've been watching peregrines eat, taking prey from all the way back to 1911, right the way through to 2020. And they found 162, so 168 in total, different prey species, and that was in Germany. So you imagine that if you're on by the cliff, you're also going to take seagulls. I mean, what we know is that one peregrine which turned up on an island in the Pacific virtually ate all of the very, very rare albatrosses which nested on that island. And it ate somewhere in the region of about 20% before it then decided to fly and go somewhere else. So they're very eclectic, very, very good hunters, quite remarkable. And they're now, of course, urban species as well. And right across the world in the urban areas, they primarily take pigeons, apart from if you're actually living as a peregrine in Adelaide, where you can still eat the parrots. So my own particular interest is in how these birds fly and exactly what their skeletal structure is as a result. And so I built my own little unit, which I fly on falconry birds. I'll just show you it here. It measures not very big. It weighs 3 grams. It collects data from satellites 18 times a second. It collects data from on the way that the bird is moving, 1,500 times a second. And so I can study the birds as they fly and as they hunt. So this is a flight of a peregrine hunting grouse in Scotland, and I can judge by what it's doing on the data which returns with the bird. I can only obviously do this on falconry birds because I can't get my unit back if I put it on a wild bird. All the data is stored on the bird itself. So what they're famous for is stooping, and some of the information which we've been looking into is to see what the reality is in comparison to what everybody thinks reality is for a stooping peregrine. So this is how a peregrine stoops. First it starts off with D shape, as it says, then it goes into this C shape where it folds in its wings so that it can drop faster, so the gravity can accelerate it. And then eventually it has to come out in order to either strike the bird that it's aiming at or collecting it with its claws. And so obviously when it's got its wings well folded in, it can go very fast in terms of dropping under gravity. Yes, it can, but what it can't do is steer properly. And so eventually it has to put its wings out in order to be able to steer across the sky, because there's no point in trying to catch something if you can't actually chase it as such. And so they have these different shapes as they come down in the stoop. The fastest speed is the C shape, which is this one. It's a cup shape with the wings folded in. Minimum amount of wings showing in order to give a little bit of ability to actually steer. And then as you approach the prey, and you need to be able to steer a little bit better, because if you're attacking the pigeon, which is doing 50 miles an hour, it can actually move pretty damn fast in 3 dimensions. And so you need to be able to move pretty quick as well. Now, in order to do this, what they have is, well, what people say they have is a tubercle which protrudes in their nostril. And it's always been said, right up until right now, basically, that this tubercle developed in order to laminarize the flow of air going into the nostril, because without it, the airflow going in would be turbulent, and that would actually reduce the ability of the bird to actually absorb oxygen in its lungs, and would also mess up its flight pattern. Now that was something which everybody assumed was true. What we're now doing, the work which Steve and I are now doing after this book, is to show that in fact was not the case. This tubercle is definitely in peregrines, but it's also in other birds, as you will see. So this is, how do I start this video, Steve? Oh, I don't do it automatically. Okay. So what we've done is taken the head off of one of the birds. It was a bird which accidentally flew into an electric cable and electrocuted itself. So we put it in the freezer and then took it along and had it micro CT scanned in order to see exactly what the structure of the nasal passages are, because the nasal passages is where the tubercle is. So what exactly is that thing doing? Is this the second one or is that the same one? Aha. Yeah. Okay. You're a bit jumpy, Steve. So here are the nasal passages coming out now. You can see them. It's a very extravagant nasal passage. Sorry, I've been told not to use that. And it's that nasal passage which really interests me, to try and work out exactly why it is that this tubercle is developed and exactly what it is that it's doing. So what we know is that it's a maze-like structure in the bird's nasal passages, and it's interesting to discover exactly why this tubercle is there, what it's doing, and if it's doing anything which everybody says it is. Now, this is a cross section through a peregrine, and you can see the tubercle underneath the red on the right there, and the nasal passages. And so the first thing to check is whether or not other falcons have actually got a somewhat similar structure. So this is the Merlin, and the answer is yes. It's got a tubercle exactly the same, and it's got the same sort of nasal structure as well. The Merlins travel fast in a straight line. They don't stoop, or they very rarely stoop, but they do travel fast in a straight line, and they've got a tubercle. So what about a hobby? Because we know that hobbies stoop. Yes, they've got a tubercle as well, and the same sort of structure. And interestingly, so is the kestrel, and the kestrel doesn't actually stoop on prey. But nonetheless, if the original falcon had a tubercle simply because it was going fast, then everything which developed from, which evolved from it, would also have the same. So other birds which go fast, do they have one of these tubercles? Well, there's a sparrowhawk, and the answer is no, they don't have one. So we know now that goshawks don't have one. Golden eagles, which go faster than peregrines, they don't have one either. So exactly what is this tubercle, and exactly what it is doing? So we go all the way back, and we pick up whatever it is that we can find, which is the first falcons which actually evolved. And the earlier ones were caracaras. And this is a striated caracara, which comes from the Falkland Islands and Tierra del Fuego. And in those countries, well, in Falklands and in Argentina, they replaced the crow. So these are crows, effectively. They are not falcons, in as much as what they're doing is crow-like rather than falcon-like. What's interesting is that striated caracara is one of the most intelligent of all the falcons. So it's evolved a good brain in exactly the same way as crows have evolved a good brain. But the most interesting thing is it has a tubercle, and yet it's older than any of the falcons, and it never goes more than 25 miles an hour. So why has it got a tubercle? So this is why I'm now interested in particularly the nasal structure of peregrines, in order to try and define what it is about the tubercle which has evolved in these birds. So that's the nasal passages, the nasal structure which is coming in and going. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't be pointing at the screen, should I? How do I get this arrow? Ah, right, okay, all right. Thank
It's
you.
not showing on the screen.
Oh,
You need to go that screen is to the right of your laptop.
Ah, yeah.
Everything on
Yeah,
there now.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
got that.
yeah. So point it to that now.
Okay, there we go. Right. So this is the nasal structure which we've taken out of a little bird called mouse. Or is it coming up? Is it? Right. Okay. So these are the nasal structures in 3 dimensions, basically coming down to where they. Oh dear me! How did that happen? See?
Can you go back one? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you can see here the nasal structure, and it goes down to the windpipe. Birds, as you know, actually don't actually breathe in and then breathe out. They breathe in and breathe out at the same time, effectively. What happens is that the air goes in, it goes into parts of the lungs where the oxygen comes out. It also fills air sacs. And as the air is coming out, being taken out of the lungs, the air sacs themselves empty into the lungs. And so the bird is collecting oxygen both on the inhaling and on exhaling. And what we found when we looked at these and dissected the nasal structures to see what it was, we saw something rather odd. And hang on, oh dear, I've done it again. Trying to find this pointer. What is this? What?
It's on the screen, I think.
Ah, right. So one of the things that we found is this. And this is an olfactory node. How did it do that? Okay, right. Well, this is looking at the airflow coming in into the skull. I've got a program which actually defines the airflow which is coming in and exactly where it's going. And what we discovered was that part of the airflow was being directed into this node, and this is the olfactory node. And so one of the things that we've discovered about birds over the last sort of few tens of years, if you like, is that birds can actually smell. For a long time, it was assumed that birds didn't smell anything. But now we know that a lot of birds do smell. So this is the airflow going into the lungs, through the air pipe at the bottom there. And part of that airflow is going into this olfactory node. And so we now know that, well, we don't actually know, but what I've been doing is an experiment with peregrines. I've got a bunch of peregrines which are in a room. They got 4 little bowls, and there's a dead chick in one of the bowls, and there's nothing else in any of the others. And you put a lead on them so that they can only reach the bowls. They can't go round the back and have a look. It's all clouded, it's all shielded, so they can't see. So we release the bird and we have a look to see where it goes. And this experiment is proving that peregrines can in fact smell. Peregrines learn very quickly to choose a bowl which has got food in it. They're pretty good at doing it. So these are, well, it's more of the shots of the flow pattern in the nostrils. So the current work, which I'm doing is on nasal passages, but also on the structure of the bones, which allow the birds to go fast. And so this is one of the shots which some colleagues in Germany have done, in which Steve has already shown you. The red areas on the bones there are where the maximum stress is. And so the maximum stress is on the humeri and then on the radius and ulna. And so the thing to look for is what is the structure of the humeri and the radius and ulna, which allows the birds to travel at somewhere in the region of about 120 miles an hour. So the thing to do is to look at what the stresses are on those individual bones. This is the way that the stress factors are sorted. The humerus resists bending because it's fixed at one end, which is pretty much a fixture on the body. And so that bone actually has to stop bending, whereas the radius and the ulna have to stop torquing. They have to stop torsion. And that's in order to allow the bird to go quickly without actually damaging his wing. So that's a diagram there. And what we know originally was that the peregrine has a bigger humerus than the hobby, than the kestrel. And right down the bottom there is the smallest of the UK falcons, which is the Merlin, which is very, very tiny bird. But it has a much bigger humerus than the kestrel, because all the kestrel is doing is hovering, looking for mice. But the Merlin is chasing, and so it's chasing at high speed. And so its humerus has been organized to be stronger. And so the next thing to do is to look to see what the internal structure of these bones are, what the humerus has got inside, which allows it to be very, very lightweight, but also incredibly strong. And that's the tubercular structure at both ends of the humerus bone of a peregrine, rotated so that we can see. And what we find is that at the two ends of the bone density is much lower. The tubercular structure inside is actually allowing the bone to be thinner, and so therefore not as heavy. But during the length of the bone, the thickness on the outside increases, so it resists bending. On the ulna, you have something very slightly different, because the ulna has to resist torsion. It has to resist bending as well, of course it does. But basically what you don't want is the bone to rotate during the course of flying. And so what we've done here is we cut into the internal structure of the bone in order to see exactly how the bone layers are fixed. And there is the internal structure of the ulna of a peregrine. And what it's got is something which looks exactly like the spiral system that you find on the inside of a toilet roll or a kitchen roll. And that prevents the tube from torsion. So why have the birds actually got these structures? Well, they have them so that they can go fast, because we know that they stoop. And so exactly how fast the stooping peregrine does depends upon who it is that you're willing to listen to. If you're willing to listen to a guy in America who has a bird called Fearful, his bird Fearful has done 240 miles an hour, he claims. Well, yes, that's probably the case, but he was doing 240 miles an hour at 17,000 feet, where the air is only about a third of it is at ground level. So what happens is that speed, as it comes down and the air gets thicker, that speed reduces. And National Geographic put a unit on Fearful, and when they got the unit back to see how fast the bird had actually gone at ground level, or very close to ground level, it was a much reduced speed. And at the same time as they were doing that, I was doing a calculation to see how fast you could actually have a bird go if it was actually dropping completely under gravity. And my calculation said that the fastest that a peregrine would ever go was 184 miles an hour. National Geographic's unit on their bird said 183. So the one thing that we definitely know is that when David Attenborough comes on the television and says peregrines do 200 miles an hour, is that he's wrong. They don't. Because the fastest that they might be able to go under gravity is not as fast as the fastest that they will go in order to seek prey. Because if you're falling like a lead ball out of the sky, you have no way of changing your direction. So you're not going to hunt at that speed under no circumstances. The fastest speed which has ever been recorded by a falcon is 130 miles an hour. And that was on a Gyrfalcon, not on a peregrine. And one of a peregrine which escaped, which had a unit attached to it, didn't it? And escaped and carried on giving out data for 4 years. That bird never touched 100 miles an hour in all of the 4 years. Anyway, so they have a structure, the bone structure is different so that they can actually fly pretty fast and dive pretty fast. They also have a different eye structure. This is the eye of a bird. They don't have the veins that we do, so that they've got a clearer view. All of the vein structure, all of the blood comes in via this system called the pecten. And so they don't have anything in the way that we do. And as a consequence, they get very much better vision. They also have, whereas we see only 3 colors, peregrines see 4. They see not only the 3 colors that we see, but they also see something which is close to the ultraviolet. Some of the birds actually can see 5 colors. And one of the ones that can see 5 colors is Columbia vilivia, which is the standard pigeon, if you like. And this is what we see at the bottom there, and what the pigeon sees is up the top. It's seeing 5 colors where we only see 3. The other thing which the birds have is that they see things differently to the way that we do in 2 ways. they see that their spatial vision is better than ours, and their temporal vision is also better than ours. In other words, they see closer, they see images in much greater detail than we do, and they see them faster. You measure spatial vision by seeing how many cycles you get in degree if you produce this thing. So what you're seeing there is that you're seeing 4 CPD, which is black and white lines in a 1 degree of arc. Us human beings can see about 60 in total. The wedge-tailed eagle can see 140. The peregrine sees about 120. So they're seeing double the vision that we've got in terms of seeing things spatially. But also the other one is temporal, how fast you can see things. What we can see is about 30 frames a second, which is what normal television, what normal films are shown at. Because if you're seeing it at 30 frames a second, you don't see the flicker. If it's less than 30 frames a second, you can see the flicker. But at 30, you don't. So we see 30. A neon tube is about 50. Some young children can actually see the flicker on neon tubes, but us adults, we don't. The peregrine, by contrast, sees 125 a second. So that means when it's attacking a bird, and it has to be able to react quickly if the bird is going to try and protect itself, it sees things 4 times faster than we do. So it not only sees it in better detail, but it sees it 4 times faster. They're pretty good, these birds. So they also have a nictitated membrane. I'll show you the video here. As you have figured, I had no idea that was coming. So whereas we have one gland, a lacrimal gland, which actually puts fluid across our eyes so that our eyes don't dry out if we're running quickly or whatever. Birds have 2. They also have the Harderian gland, which produces a much thicker material, which actually protects their eyes if they're traveling fast. They also have one other thing which also upsets those people who think that peregrines can only see maybe 2 or 5 times better than we do, because they have this thing called the Crampton's muscle, which actually moderates the lens itself. We don't have one of those. So what we don't know is how good the vision is of a peregrine because of their use of this Crampton's lens. And on some of the stuff which Steve and I have been doing when we've been watching at Symonds Yat, it appears to us that the vision of a peregrine is probably somewhere in the region of 15 times better than the vision of human beings. They also differ in another way, and that is that whereas we have one position of maximum visual acuity, which is right at the back of our eye, which gives us stereo vision, peregrines and other raptors, other falcons, have 2. They have a shallow fovea, which is exactly the same as ours. It gives them stereo vision, but they also have a deeper fovea, which looks like that. So that's the shallow fovea at the bottom and the deeper fovea at the top. And the deeper fovea is what gives them that huge magnification. And so when they're looking at something, what they see is they get a 35-degree binocular vision because their eyes are very big and are placed in the skull. They can't move their eyes because the eyes are too big. But they have this huge area, 130 degrees vision, which is probably 15 times better. And so the real object to decide now if you're going to spot a bird from a long way off, and what you want to do is to use your deep fovea vision, which is set at an angle of 40 degrees, then what you want to do is to fly in a straight line, because that gives you minimum drag. And so the next thing I did then, I was watching Gyrfalcons in Iceland, and I was watching, I was also watching these particular falcons in Ellesmere Island. And on Ellesmere Island in Arctic Canada, the Gyrfalcons were hunting Arctic ground squirrels, and they were hunting them at the end of a valley, which was about 1.5 miles long. And Arctic ground squirrels never move more than 50 yards away from their nests, so they are effectively a stationary target. And this valley had parallel sides, and I was watching the birds fly, and I could see that they were flying in a curve. They weren't flying in a straight line. They weren't going straight down the valley, which is what you'd expect. They were flying in a curve. So I went to a local university where I live, and I said, these birds aren't flying in a straight line, they're flying in a curve. Why are they doing that? And they basically told me to go away because I was an idiot. And so that's why I built this unit, because I knew they were flying in a curve, and I wanted to find out why. So I did the mathematics, because I'm a theoretical physicist, but the math is easy. And what I noticed was that if you were watching something with your maximum vision, and you were watching that at 40 degrees to the axis of your body, the curve, you would indeed fly in a curve. And the falcon's flight path, I realized, was actually a curve. They were flying deliberately in a curve, because that reduced the drag and therefore allowed them to go faster. Because if they wanted to go in a straight line, you know, the vision would be at 40 degrees and it wouldn't work. So what we needed to do was to show what this curved path looked like. Well, it looks like an amethyst. That's a curved path, and it's the same one. It's a logarithmic spiral, and the bird will fly in a logarithmic spiral. So what we did was we took a bird called Mouse. Unfortunately, most of the bird got electrocuted, so you've seen parts of him early on. And we took him, he flew in an area of mid-Wales, and so we flew him further and further away, until eventually when the handler was 1.5 miles away, we could get the bird to fly to him, because he was trusting day glow cloths and swinging a lure. And then we needed now to make sure that the bird wasn't flying in an area that he knew very well. And so he knew where he was. So we then took him to the Black Mountains, and we released him 2 kilometers away from his handler. And the bird went up in the air, and he started to look around. He flew in small circles. It was Steve and I who released the bird. He flew in small circles while he was looking for his handler. And then he saw his handler. He saw his handler because he was dressed in day glow colors all the way down the bottom of the valley. And then he flew in a curve. And that curve is exactly the curve which I predicted he would fly in. Well, that was rather pleasant. One last slide from me. Their eyesight is fantastic, but this bird was actually born with only one eye. This is a male peregrine that was born with only one eye. So even if you've only got one eye, you can still do pretty well. This bird was bred 9 years on the trot in France and raised chicks in every year. Okay. Oh, one more. Yes, I beg your pardon. Steve has just told me I finish on a lovely sunset. A Babylonica. Oh no, it's a migrated calidus, this one. Ah, yes, I remember. Yeah. So it's a almost white-breasted calidus in Gujarat. Okay, fine. I'll hand you over to Steve.
Thank you. Thank you. Richard Taylor, ladies and gentlemen. Coffee break time. Thank you. Well, no, it's not coffee, is it? I know. I was getting to the point. This is mine. Okay. Okay, so here's the second part. We'll go through this. We've got at the end because we started a bit late, I've got a lovely 7-minute video at the end, which the chair lady has said I can show. But it's going to take us beyond half an hour. Probably we could have finished at 20 to 10 if that's okay. If anyone walks out beforehand, I will understand. So this is a study done on herring gulls, and this herring gull is dead. So this is a herring gull colony, and they're very defensive of their colonies. A few hours later, a peregrine turned up and started eating this gull in the middle of the colony with no reaction whatsoever. So you're thinking, okay, they know it's dead. But the peregrine found it, and why did it go in there, knowing that it might well be attacked? We think it was sense of smell. It smelled that it was dead. The herring gulls know it was dead. And this is one of the things that started as looking at smell and olfaction, because this is a pointer towards that. So different habitats. Now, peregrine nest in many different habitats, but of late, and certainly in the 21st century, they've started nesting very successfully in quarries and in urban structures. And this is a massive worldwide trend that has changed their habitat in the 21st century. So I'm going to show you figures later, but I've just shown you here some of the habitats that they occupy. So this is a quarry, and this is a picture done by Eugene. This is a natural site, inland cliff in Africa, and that is, anyone know what that prey is? Did someone say yellow wagtail? Well done. This is the first time anyone has got that right. So congratulations. I'm just trying to think of the prize I'm going to give you. Think about that and tell me at the end. Well done. That's a first. Okay, in Germany, DDT affected the population badly, as it did in most of Europe, and they started putting up net boxes, etc. This is on electricity pylon, but it's a structure that's got a raven's nest in it. This, I'm not sure whether this was actually a raven or whether it was a nest produced by humans to simulate raven, but this is often done. So this was the start of, if you like, human structure type nesting. Tree nest. We do get tree nests in the UK, and they are few and far between. But we found a guy, Grandham, who found a couple in Wiltshire. We know there are some in Shropshire, there's some down south in Sussex. But I think we don't look for them because they're not expected to be found on trees. So I suspect the population of tree nesting peregrines is rather higher than we imagine. But in any event, it's very small, and it's a minor section. They will typically take up buzzard's nests or raven's nests or maybe corvids. Am I going to get the usual for some reason, most audiences go, but as you can see, this is a man-made structure put up to accommodate the peregrines. This is a single chick in Yorkshire, Yorkshire, on the ground. Not many ground nesters in the UK, but this is one. There was a ground nester in Southampton on a bar or shingle bar on the coast. And they sometimes get washed out, but they have been successful. And also on little tern nests, you know, these little tern islands that sometimes put up, these structures. Well, sometimes peregrines will nest on those. This is a photo taken by Richard in the Arctic. This is frost, I think it was taken by Richard. Yep, frost shattered rock. So just goes to show you the extremes of habitat type that they will nest on. This is a nest box put up by us, actually, at Eugene Bell Tower. And the bird at the back there, see if I can work this. Is it showing? No, I can't work that. Okay, so the bird at the back is the male. The female's just come in. He's on eggs. More of him later. This is the female at Eurasian Belka. Look how large it is. Now you remember that, well you do remember, the video I showed you right at the beginning where we had the head over heels rolling over Peregrine. This is the female. Can you see how much larger she is? Now typically female peregrines will be about 1,100 grams. The male might be about 700. Typically the males are a third less weight, hence the word tearsal, which means a third in Latin, derived from Latin. So she's a big girl. This is Azena, AZN, in the top. You see the top bird there with the ring on her right leg. Can you see the initials AZN? Black on white, it's a Dardig. This bird has come 385 kilometers across the channel from the Netherlands off the Heineken building. So it likes to drink. She's 4 years old at this point, and Tom on the bottom is 12 years old at this point, and showing extreme submissive appeasement behavior. The males, being so much smaller, appease the dominant females. Females are almost always highly dominant, particularly in the breeding season of the male, and the males have to appease them or feel they need to. So he's got his head right on the ground, and he's looking up at her as if to say, "Don't kill me." It does happen occasionally. Don't kill me. And these particular birds have formed a fantastic bond over the last few years and are doing very well. This is a lovely picture, isn't it? Eurasian Belka male. This is the very male that did the head over heels job. And this was GB83214. Why do I know? Because I was there when it's ringed. It was Dardic coded PAR. The Dardic code fell off. This bird sadly was found dead under the eyrie on December the 30th, 2022. We have reason to believe that it was malicious, as ball bearings and nuts were found under the eyrie and kids were being recovered. We still believe there's an issue there, and we still think it's ongoing. 2 males have been lost in 2023, and they failed to breed. Well, they produced young, but the male was killed, we think. It's slightly speculative, but I don't think very speculative. The male was killed, and he couldn't provide for the young, and so. And that happens if the male dies at a certain point in the breeding cycle, then the female won't be able to produce, bring them on. So that's a rather sad story. The corollary to that is that Richard now has this bird in his breeder. And he is taking it on November the 3rd to Tring, Natural History Museum, London and then Tring. We're going to get it analysed, CT scanned and X-rayed. And if there is any evidence in that of foul play, we will be making a big issue of it at Evesham with the police. And we will publicise that highly, because these things have got to be right. We'll be going after the perpetrators as far as we can. This was found under a Eugene Potapov. It's a teal without a head, which is not untypical at breeding season, particularly at the beginning of the breeding season. Typically, peregrines will disarticulate the cervical vertebrae to kill birds in flight, and sometimes the head falls off. The male, however, has a reason biologically to eat the head, and that is there are lipids in the skull which benefit sperm production. So it's in his interest to eat brain material, and this often happens at that particular time of year. Okay, it happens all the time. But males, it seems, are predisposed, genetically perhaps, to eat heads at this point. Sorry about that. Okay, a bit of video footage for you now. This was, again, taken at Evesham. Look at the bottom left-hand corner. That's the female. She's incubating. Keep looking. This is stuck. This is normally a proper video, but it's clearly stuck and it's not working properly. Let's let it go, see if it pops up. Well, she's surprised, and really surprised. No, it's not really. you very much. I've had enough of that. The male dog landed on top of the roof. Made a deal to do so. First time he's done it. He's going in now, and he's going to incubate. The thing about webcams, and particularly when you've got voice on as well, is that you get these lovely intimate vocalizations that you very rarely hear in the field. So now, with webcams, we're picking up this lovely partner vocalization that have never been heard. People like Raptor back in the 90s would have loved to have seen this. So you get a really good idea of what they mean and how they react to each other, and this is all part of the bonding process. Now I'm going to go through the cycle of egg laying and hatching, and I'm going to show you different stages of that development very quickly over the 40 days of the hatch and then brooding. So here we go. That's day one. Bottom left-hand corner. This is the day. I'm going to just advance it very quickly. Day one. Look at the little chick. Those 3 eggs don't hatch. They're dead. Day 5. Now keep an eye on how big that chick is each 5-day period. Day 10. Now this is incredible. In day 15, that 5-day period, this chick grows at a greater rate than it grows at any other time. Watch this. This is 5 days. Isn't that absolutely remarkable? They bring in a lot of food at this point. It's developing its feathers. Look at the talons and the toes in particular. Can you see the chick? They're as big as the adults. And actually they develop talons and defensive material, if you like, before they develop feathers. Why? If there's a predator on the loose, what the peregrine will do in the eyrie at a young age will put itself on its back and it will put its talons up. And it's in its interest, from a survival point of view, to actually have a defensive mechanism before it has feathers. And this happens with goshawks and most raptors. So they arm themselves before they feather themselves. Day 20, day 25, day 23. Okay, Charing Cross. Now I'll move over here. This has gone from Evesham Bell Tower to Charing Cross. And that is day 23. This is Azina, the Heineken girl, coming 385 kilometers. This is Indy, the chick, 23 days. And what's that green item in there? Parakeet. Who said that? Well done. 2 on the same row, getting exactly the right answer. Well done. Fantastic. Yeah, parakeets. They take 6% parakeet by mass in that particular site in breeding season, which is remarkable, isn't it? In fact, I don't know whether you can see this from there. You probably can't. But this is a pellet taken from Charing Cross Hospital, which includes parakeet green feathers. So I keep that and send it around the audience. If you saw this going round before we started, you'll have seen the pellets in there. Day 25, I suspect, coming up. Look how big it is. Now, what you can see now is at the bottom of the image there, you see the pin feathers coming through from the down on the chick. This is the second down. It's a grayer down than the first. This down takes over at about day 8 or 9, thicker and grayer, and the pin feathers are starting to come through. Day 30. Now you've got the bird, it's been ringed by now, and you can see that the feather down ratio is about 50%. And this is interesting to know, because if you're in the field, as I do a lot of work observing birds from a distance through telescopes, if I see a bird that's half feather, half black, if you like, brown, and half down, I know that's 30 days. If I see that, then I can infer from that when the hatch date was, by going back 30 days. So that starts to give you a lot of information if you can be fairly precise about the aging of the bird you're looking at from a long distance. Day 35. That's a chick on the right, look. Day 40. That's him up there. That's Tom, the long-standing 12-year-old male there, who's done a great job, by the way, with the starling. And day 40 is the day that he fledged. This is a prey spectrum of that particular pair over the period in which they were feeding the chick. 86% of Charing Cross Hospital in 2022 with pigeons and ducks. 7% starling. This is by biomass, 6% ringneck parakeets. This is typical in the breeding season in an urban location. This is why urban locations have been incredibly successful in the 21st century and at the latter end of the 20th century, because they've got free and available pigeons, feral pigeons, any amount, and the feral pigeons will outbreed peregrines. Of course they will. So you've always got a large amount of feral pigeons. One thing, if you're a peregrine, if any of you come back as a peregrine, when you're having your feral pigeons, make sure you take racers. Take racers, not the feral pigeons. And the reason for that is feral pigeons tend to get trichomoniasis, I might not spell that right, which is France, which is a nasty disease. Racing pigeons are, as you'd expect from a loft, perfectly, they've been injected, they're fine, they're in perfect condition, take a racing pigeon. And the reason I say that is in Charing Cross Hospital in 2023, they had 3 chicks, 2 of them died from trich. And there's no doubt that trich, which is a respiratory disease, was picked up from feral pigeons, and they wouldn't have been racers. So there you are. This is the chart showing from April to May, the 10th of April to the 18th of May. This is a 40-day period. And it's showing when the female or the male was on there. So all the bars that are red over that 40-day period is when the female was incubating. The blue bits are when the male was incubating. And the green section right at the beginning here was when nobody was incubating at all. So you can see that they left the eggs initially. Normally they hard incubate the penultimate egg. So if they lay 4, they'll hard incubate at 3. If they lay 3, they'll hard incubate at 2. And the inference there is they know how many eggs they're going to have before they hard incubate, which is interesting of itself. Now look at that. This is the Asian bell tower. You see that females on eggs 65% of the time. Now I've got to keep that image in your head. And now I'm going to go to the exactly the same for Charing Cross. Here we go. Very, very different. The female was dominant here, 84% as opposed to 65%. A lot of green at the beginning, not on the eggs. The male was not allowed to incubate overnight, whereas the Asian was. So what this tells you is a wide variation of incubation by parents, and it all depends on their experience, on their relationship, on how old one is compared to the other, and on their tendency to want to incubate. Some females are very bad at incubating, some males really want to incubate, you know. And I guess it's the same with humans, you know, the degree to which a male wants to be involved with the children or not varies, of course, from person to person. The same thing with peregrines. So no one can say, oh yes, it's 65% clear of the time a female incubates. No, it's entirely variable. This is the front cover of the book, but it's with a difference. You see that? I'm going to use this because I don't think it works on here. See that bird there? That's a juvenile. It's standing up, and the adult is to the far left, and the other juvenile is right up near the adult coming in. And the juvenile on the right wants to get some food, and this is what happens. Bang. It falls over straight on his face. Now, this was a moment when Richard and I were together. Richard took all these shots. We were together, and we came down to this particular place, and we didn't know there was anything there. It was 2022. There were not many people around. I think the end of COVID was still happening at this point, so it was restricted. And we said, wouldn't it be wonderful if when we turn around this corner, they're going to be young sitting on that rock face. We turned around the corner, and lo and behold, there were young sitting on that rock face. So that was a rather nice moment. And that's why this features at the front of the book, because it's a joint experience that Richard and I have had. It also happens to be my study site, Symonds Yat, which I've studied for 40 years, so it meant a great deal to me as well. Okay, I'm going. Yeah, just to get that. It's the only way I can get it to the box. I'm dragging it to the box. And this is the way the male used to always come in. On the arm. And you can tell which one's which because one of them has got a veto ring and the other hasn't. Female is a lot larger than the ears. You can also tell by the plumage. And by the way, once the peregrines have reached their adult plumage, they will always moult the same plumage every year to the spot. That means you can determine year on year on year whether or not you've got the same bird. Now that in itself is very important in terms of observation. Friends and enemies. Oh, the eagle owl. Well, the eagle owl is a mortal enemy of peregrines, and of course it doesn't catch peregrines by outflying, does it? Clearly, it doesn't. What it does is it uses a different eye structure where it's got rods, rod receptors, which are good for nocturnal activity, whereas the peregrine being diurnal has got cones. And so therefore it uses its ability to look in the dark for prey. Now I've got here a rather disturbing video of an eagle owl taking it's a buzzard out of a nest. You're going to see this now. But it demonstrates the principle of how eagle owls will take peregrines. Right, now watch below the birds. There's a couple of eyes you can see. Can you see those eyes at the bottom there in the middle of the picture? There's a couple of eyes a long way away. That's the owl. Now watch this. Okay, here it is. It's on the move. It's coming up. Bang! It's taken it off. Peregrines, these are buzzards actually, but they just wouldn't stand a chance, and they don't have a chance. So in Germany, there are 4,500 pairs of breeding eagle owls. There are 1,200 pairs of breeding peregrines. The eagle owls have started coming away from their natural habitat, which is forestry, and they've come into towns. And they've started taking over peregrine boxes. So they are now deleting, if you like, taking over peregrine boxes and reducing the human structure population in urban environments. We do have the odd occasional eagle owl in the UK. There's one not far from where Rich and I live at Woodland, and they will survive. But I've not heard of any, unless anyone can tell me they do, I've not heard of any eagle owls in urban environments, and I haven't heard of any eagle owls in the UK taking over peregrine iris. But that's something for the future that may or may not happen. This is another example, which is unpleasant, but I'll show you it because it's what happens. That's the eagle owl coming in to the peregrine chicks. Okay, the adult female now is going to come and attack that eagle owl. It's got no chance because the eagle owl is much, much bigger. So it's got no chance, and once they attack, they can hardly fail because they're so large. The talons are very, very large. So an eagle owl female is about 1.8 kilos. A peregrine female is about 1,001 kilograms, so they're much bigger. Talons are much heavier. Anyone been to Symonds Yat here? Oh, good. Oh, lots of hands. Okay. So I've done a 40-year study at Symonds Yat, and in 2017 we started getting Canada geese taking over the peregrine iris, to the point where there are 3 main large hole iris sites such as that, and Canada geese were in every single one. Canada geese nest slightly earlier than peregrines and get in there. Once they get in there, if it's a hole in the rock face, the peregrine can't attack it, and they've actually reduced the peregrines to nesting in much smaller spots, certainly suboptimal. And the peregrine productivity since 2017 at Symonds Yat reduced to 25% of the because some people suggest they should be shot. Show of hands who thinks they should be shot. I mean, they're not native. One, just the one. That wasn't quite serious. I mean, I would never dream of shooting anything. Actually, I couldn't bring myself to do it. But they are non-native. They do have this impact. We've only seen it at Symonds Yat. I've heard of no other examples in the UK where this has happened. But because their population is increasing, it might be something to be wary of in future of other parasites. Someone said to me they don't care how big they are, do they? This is a peregrine miner attacking a Barrow's eagle, not for prey, but simply for territorial defense. So they don't care. Look at this image, it's unbelievable. What's going on there? This was not photoshopped. It is a genuine image near Norwich Cathedral taken by a guy called Chris Skipper, who was very good at helping us with some of the photography in the book. This is a leopard blackback gull attacking a peregrine that itself has brought in a kill of a pigeon. And that peregrine might have come in a couple of miles. It's probably tired. It's trying to get it to his chicks. That herring gull wants to take it off the peregrine, and if it's got a couple of mates knocking around, it may well succeed, and they sometimes do. However, sometimes the food can't go good. That's an adult peregrine attacking a juvenile herring gull. I'm going to bring this up to show you exactly what's happening here. The peregrine has got its talons round the herring gull's neck, but it's also restraining its ability to fly by grabbing the primary feather. So the story there is that this herring gull was killed and fed to the chicks. And peregrines are on the coast taking herring gulls more frequently now because rock doves are not doing very well. They're typical prey, traditional historical prey, and not necessarily as available, so they're resorting to taking herring gulls. And there is a study that was done some time ago now on Lundy, where the authors of that study thought that 21% of prey was herring gulls for a particular peregrine. That's a peregrine attacking a buzzard. Okay, right. This is time for a test. I don't think I've got a decent prize. I could probably find a peregrine feather if someone wants to take it back to their children if they're interested. This is going to be some video of the Exeter peregrines, who are well known to be psyched up against buzzards. They make it their business to kill buzzards rather than do anything else. They'd rather kill buzzards than breed. They'd rather kill buzzards than eat anything. And here you're going to see a serious attack. Richard and I have seen this on a couple of occasions. What I want you to do is count the number of stoops you see, and I'll ask the audience how many you've got. I think we might have something in the second row is correct. We've already got 2 correct. So here we go. Count them. I'll count the first one for you so you know what we're talking about. Also, when you count, include when you see the buzzard turning upside down, because the peregrine is going through so fast you don't see it, but you do see the evasive action of the buzzard. Here we go. Right. Sadly, that usually plays very well, but I think because we've got Zoom on here as well, it's probably taken some of the memory up and making the video jerk. So it wasn't the best example. But did anyone count the number of stoops you saw?
10.
Anyone got anyone? I know it's difficult. Who said 23? Wow. 23, good. Anyone else? 13. Second row, come on, the second row. Sorry? 17. 17. Okay, well, no prize, but 24. Great shout, great shout. It was difficult because the video sadly was jerky, so that's a shame. Now, these birds were extant at Exeter for 8 years. And during that period, 473 attacks on buzzards were seen, 70 were downed, and 20 were killed. 2 of them are in Nick Dixon's freezer. Here's another video showing the same. It's a bit more visceral. I hope it doesn't frame like the last one did, but I suspect it will.
Oh, that's bugging.
Yeah, that's down.
That's finished.
You watch, they'll carry on hitting it.
That's got a broken knee.
Yeah. 7.
That's the end of that one.
I'm afraid it's just not good enough to show. But anyway, what I was going to say was, Richard and I were there that day, and it was taken, but that video was taken off a smartphone. It wasn't very good. The quality was good, but the action was interesting. We were on top of St Mary Archer's car park, it's a multi-story car park in Exeter, and that bird was knocked down 50 metres from where we were, and the buzzard spiralled down like a sycamore tree, came down past us. We watched it go down into the high street and ended up on a table in Costa Coffee. Seriously, that's what happened. Okay, so anyone who knows your peregrines will know that Derek Ratcliffe wrote the Peregrine book back in 1980, 1993. And halfway through doing this book, I got a phone call from the BTO saying, oh, Derek Ratcliffe's relatives have just entered 12 boxes of his material. Would you like to have a look at it? I said, when can I come? They said, come now. So we extracted some of the information from that and used it in the book. And this on the left here is Ratcliffe's own handwriting in 1960, when he was 33. He was appointed to be the head of the Peregrine surveys by the government. And he did a survey first, and that's where the peregrines, the red areas marked, and where the peregrines were, he thought, at that point. And the blue hatching is where he knew he had people he could rely upon to do the study, to do the survey. And you'll note that there's very little in the east side of the country, and large parts of the UK there aren't any peregrines, which was the case there. The book, the figure on the right, the photograph, is one from Ratcliffe, and that was done when he was 18. And that was in Galloway. And this is 1947. 1947 is the very year that DDT started becoming a problem in the UK. It was put on farmland in great quantities. And what wasn't known when that happened was that this was a problem for raptors, because the impact was biomagnified in their brain, and it caused biological carnage, if you like. Stopped them breeding very well. And what he wouldn't have known, and he's the one, Ratcliffe is the one who unraveled the mystery, the connection between DDT and raptor deaths. He's the scientist who unraveled it, and he's the guy who took this photograph in 1947. He would not have known that potentially those eggs had been contaminated by DDT as he took it. And the effects of that only came known in 1960, although it was seen in the field when he did his first survey and showed, in fact, that the peregrine population had reduced dramatically from previous breed levels. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. It's 9:30, so we're getting there. What we did, we wanted to look at population, and as a precursor to looking at population, we wanted to look at the underlying land use of the UK to determine how that affected population levels of peregrines. So you see all the red blobs, that's all urban area. That's urban built infrastructure, the red. So that's the degree to which peregrines can take over in urban structures, limited by that. Also, the green is farmland arable, 27.8%, pasture farmland, 28.7%. Farmland arable was susceptible to DDT poisoning from 1947 right through to 1963. So if we now look at a map, this is the low point in 1962 of the number of territorial pairs in the UK subject to DDT. And you can see there is a correlation on the white areas where there are no pairs and the green areas where you've got arable farmland. There is a very clear correlation between population density and arable farmland. So we then mapped this out for all the surveys that have been done, and I'm just going to run this through progressively. So 1930, so your reference point pre-war on the left is going to stay there. I'm going to leave that there, 874 pairs. You've got a key at the bottom, which is the dark brown is 150 kilometers square per pair. The white is nothing. The one on the right, 1961, 524 pairs. The one on the right is going to morph upwards until up to 2014. I'm going to do that slowly. So you can see how the population has changed over the last 52 or so years. So here we go. That 1961 has become 62, 426 pairs. Now 1971, 437. So not much of an improvement from 62 to 71, 9 years. Pretty well static, no real improvement. DDT by this point has been banned. 1981, now you're starting to get something close to the pre-war level, but not quite yet. Now, Ratcliffe reckons that we've achieved pre-war parity in 1985. There wasn't a survey done in that year, but there was one done in 1991, which Ratcliffe headed again. 1991 now, the figures are morphing on the right. Look at that change. 1283 pairs, dramatic increase. And we're starting to now see the effect of urbanisation on the UK peregrine population, but not to any great degree. So now we're going to go to 2002. Now look at how dense that we're getting on the west coast, particularly on west, but note in particular the Highlands, the northern Scottish Highlands on the top left-hand side there, has diminished in 2002, even though the population has dramatically increased overall for the UK. This is land use, afforestation, and also we think PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, which is an industrial poison that ends up in the sea from maybe the Shetlands, oil refineries, etc., coming down the rivers in the north of Scotland and impacting their ability to produce as well as they have done. So you see that continue. Now notice there, at Shetland, there's nothing in 2002, it's white, whereas in pre-war, we had quite a healthy population. That has slightly changed since 2014 now. 1,753 pairs. East Anglia and the East have dramatically increased, and it is all to do with quarry use, which is new, and human structure use, which is new again. So now I'm going to do a bit of a clever thing with PowerPoint. Well, I think it's clever. That's clever, isn't it? You don't think so, do you? Okay, 1939, at the top left-hand corner, 874 pairs. 1962, the lowest case, 426 pairs, half of the pre-war population. Bottom left-hand corner, 1991, 1283 pairs. Bottom right-hand corner, 2014, the last national survey that was done, 1,753 pairs. And the key is on the right. And if you pick up any one area and just compare them, you can do so readily to see how that population has changed over that period. This is new data in a new format that we produced, and we've done it from Ratcliffe and all of the surveys. And it took a considerable effort to do this and to reduce it to a country map. But we did it. I think it's worth doing because you very clearly see the population movements over that long period of time. So this is the underlying story of the habitat types, and I'm going to be fairly brief because we're running short of time now. But basically what I'm doing is on the graph, it shows numbers on the left-hand side. There's a number of territorial pairs going up to 2,000. And along the axis at the bottom, we've got the years. And you can see that blue is coastal numbers. Green is natural inland. Inland corals are grey. Inland human structures are orange. Now look at the way the population changes from 3039 through to the low point 62 when we had DDT and cyclidine, which were 10 times worse than DDT, by the way. And then 1991, we start getting quarry birds, the grey, a little bit of human structure. 2002, a lot more quarry, some human structure. 2014, we've got 453 in quarries and 297 in human structure, which is quite remarkable because only 30 years before that, we had hardly anything in human structures and nothing in human structures and almost nothing on quarry. So this is a massive change in habitat type. Okay, so we're doing a book in 2022. We've got data going up to 2014. We want to know what's happening up to 2020. So we've done we've got all our friends together. They're giving us data samples to see what's happening since 2022, up to 2022 from 2014, so we can understand what the population might be doing at a country level. And what we found, we concentrated on London as one of them. In 2000, there were no territorial pairs in London at all. By 2014, follow the blue line, 25 pairs. That's 25 out of the 297 that you remember from the previous slide. In 2020, 51 pairs, 51 breeding pairs of peregrines in Greater London. Isn't that absolutely remarkable? But it's also typical worldwide of what's happening. And now we've got the densest number of successful peregrine breeding in human structure environments, in urban environments, and they're much more productive than their counterparts in natural inland and coastal. So they're producing on average one more young per successful nest than on the older type habitats. Isn't that remarkable? So we think that the population now is somewhere between 2,000 and 2,250, which is an all-time high. Now I'm going to see this video back. Isn't that beautiful, by the way? It's not too bad, actually. I'll let that go. This is the Cornwall coastal bird. And that North Cornwall coast is subject, we think, to mercury poisoning in the sea. And this bird was lost, we think, or the skin were lost to mercury. This is a footage taken by a BBC cameraman, who's a friend of mine. He gave us the footage. And it just shows you how beautiful these birds are, close quarters, aren't they? Absolutely gorgeous. So I am obsessed, totally and completely obsessed. Have been all my life. So how did the human structure, we're nearly there now, so don't worry, you know, go around very short. We're nearly there. What I wanted to know in this analysis was, if you're a peregrine and you were born on a natural inland site, would you then go on to breed on the same site type? Would you then go on to breed in a natural inland site? Yeah, will there be some carryover in that? So we tested this. We've got all the records from BTO that we could, and we found natural inland. We found 45 records. 22 of those went on to breed on natural inland sites. So you've got about a 50% site type fidelity. 21 of them went to quarries, which is itself quite interesting. But of course, as a peregrine and indeed to us, there's not much difference between a quarry phase and a natural inland phase. Only one thing which is by humans and one other. So they're very, very similar. And two, and note this is important, two only went to human structures from a natural inland. In quarries, we had 15 samples. 9 of them, the chicks, went on to breed themselves in quarries. And of those 16, 7 went to natural inland. And as we said, there's not much difference between natural inland and quarry, so it's more or less the same sort of habitat type. Coastal, we had very few records. We had 5 records. 3 of those birds I had 60%, but it's not big enough to be, you know, really a properly used number. 3 out of 5 went to stay on the coast, 1 went to a forest, and 1 went to a human structure. So now from our old traditional habitat types, we've had 3 birds went to human structures. Now, in human structures themselves, all these records, there are 29 of them, were all born on human structures. 18, i.e. plus 4, and I'll tell you why that 4 is a different colour orange. 22 of the 29, i.e. 77%, stayed site-based. So it means that if you're born as a peregrine on a human structure, the chances are 77% based on this statistic that you're going to go on to breed on a human structure. There's a high level of site-type fidelity, which has not been seen before, not been proven before. It's new science in the book. Now, the interesting thing here, though, I find it fascinating, and we were quite amazed actually by this, weren't we? Which was quite surprising finding. Those 4 are all from the continents, and they're all in London. So what we're saying is there's more birds, breeding birds on human structures come across the channel into London over the last 30 years than came from our own habitat types that are different, i.e. natural inland quarry, coastal. More came from Europe than came from our own population. So what we now say from that is we believe the human structure population in the UK was largely seeded from Europe and then came across the channel. And we have reasonable grounds to believe that because the human structure population took off much quicker in Europe, was at much higher levels in Europe in the 1990s as it was in the UK. And normal dispersal of 300 kilometers for a female would indicate that this is a normal dispersal from coastal or inland Europe because they radiate randomly into London and thereabouts. So this is new science. We believe it's valid and it makes sense. And then radiating from there, we expect now the human structure population to increase as we go north, and it's radiated northwards ever since. Now, I'm going to bypass this because we've got little time, but I'm afraid I've got this lovely video, but I just don't think the framing is going to be right. I'll try, but I'm going to cut it short if it doesn't, because it's a wonderful video. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, I'm just going to kill it. No, I can't show it. That's very sad. we'll play it. So this is a poem by Mortimer Batten. He's an English poet, 1923, he wrote this. And this does it all for me. I am obsessed with peregrines. I'm amazed every time I see one. I can't take my eyes off them. My wife thinks she's going to lose me to peregrines. She keeps telling me that anyway. And now it's curtains for us. Wait for it. Well, that didn't work either. Never mind. So the Peregrine Falcon we're saying is 49 nice fancies gathered at 45 rounds. And there it goes, and I've got a set machine. Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Do we have time for questions, Shirley?
I think we've got enough time for a couple. Are there any questions in the room to start off with?
I'm interested in your human nesting and human breeding correlation in respect to something else I was involved in, where the suggestion was that since the 1990s had suitable habitats. Prior to the 1990s, we didn't have suitable habitats because of nesting, poison, people running around on loose, spreading fireworks around, all this sort of good stuff. Does that correlate with what you're saying?
Absolutely, I agree entirely.
Could you just repeat the question a little bit, just because the people on Zoom wouldn't have heard that?
Okay, so the question basically is that human structure habitats have become viable since the 1990s because humans have acted differently towards the peregrines coming in, whereas netting was previously there. It's now
You built the high rises.
Absolutely. No, there's a lot of truth in that. It's definitely right, and what is being compounded by and added to is the fact that people like me in urban environments will see a peregrine and they'll see it breed and they'll see it fail, and it will fail because the eggs, if there's no substrate, will just roll off. And then particularly in churches, if it builds on the top of a church, they'll go down a lead gutter and the eggs will go. So people like me, and there's a lot of others, will come up and put an S box in, give it a perfect substrate, give it a chance, and they will then breed. As it happened at Charing Cross Hospital and happened at Eurasian Hobby, we'll put webcams on, and then you get a little community of interested people who watch that webcam all the time, start talking on webcams, talk to each other, and it builds up a little social structure around it, and this develops. So we have made it a good habitat for urban peregrines. In fact, isn't it odd that human agency has assisted the expansion of peregrines into urban environments, whereas in their more natural environments, like, should we say, grass, they've been persecuted badly. Raptors don't survive on grass more, and yet they survive by agency of man in human structures. Isn't that wonderful? So it's a nice antidote to the persecution that we get. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. The other thing, question, rodent predation in buildings, which post-9 we're building the new building. Rodent predation on roofs and things like that has gone down, and it's coming back now with roof gardens and other street of things people are managing.
Well, certainly rodenticide has been a problem for owls and such. But for peregrines, of course, they don't tend to take rodents, so it's not an issue. Then that's not what you're saying. Ah, beg your pardon. Absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. Sorry, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, and again, people like me will try to assist that. We see that happening, we'll do something about it. And often you'll get fledglings will come to ground in urban environments and come on the road. And if they did that in a natural environment, they have a fox, stoat, crow, raven, you name it, will kill them straight away. Whereas we, the community, will organise pledge watches, etc. And we will help them take the bird back up, and we've done it many times, and put it back in the nest tray. So that helps them. Okay, any more?
Any more questions here? Or is there anybody on Zoom who would like to ask the question. Yes, Robert, I can see you putting your hand up. Carry on.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you think we're anywhere near peregrines reaching their capacity, their breeding capacity in this country? Because you've mentioned one or two threats or cases where there's competition. So do you think they've reached their capacity?
You mean territorial competition between peregrines?
Other species, well, natural competition. You mentioned the Canada geese, because we've taken away some of the human threats.
Yeah, I understand. My view is that in some areas we have reached capacity. Maybe in London we're getting there. And I think what will be the limits to capacity in human areas is going to be territorial defence, because there's enough prey to give you large density of populations in human structure urban areas. But it will be limited by the interaction between the birds. We typically don't allow another breeding pair within a mile. I happen to believe that the density will go up much more considerably still in urban environments. Certainly on the coastal sites, the traditional coastal sites, they are at capacity in the South West, in Cornwall, Devon, in Wales, and probably parts of Scotland. But I think the big new environments habitat is human structure and quarries. And I think there's a way to go there.
Okay, thank you.
So just to finalise that one, the density in London of breeding peregrines is much less than it is in New York. It's approximately 1 every 9 square kilometres in the UK, in London. Whereas in New York, it's 1 in 5.
Okay.
Thank you.
One last question? Or I think it's probably better actually draw it to a close now. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much to our excellent speakers tonight, to Steve and Richard. I found that absolutely fascinating. There's so much that was new to me. I feel there's probably still more to learn, but I was really interested to. Thank you very much.